But as much um, of our budget as we spend on this stuff, whether it's uh, the carts, whether it's the actual sound system per se, all the things that go into, and we're talking front of the front pit area right now. Welcome everybody. Ask Mike. This is Tech Volume 2, for lack of a better term. But I think part of that training, Tim and Mike, you can speak more directly to maybe the directors, is that I had a friend who bought a pool behind trailer, an RV kind of trailer. And when they bought it, they showed him all the cabinets, all the places you could put things, blah, blah, blah. But my friend told me that they turned to him and they said, you need to consider this. Every time you pull this somewhere, it's going to be like an earthquake going on inside this trailer. So if you don't take care of the stuff that's in there, you're going to open the door and everything's going to be everywhere. Stuff might be broken. And I just thought that was interesting in consideration of all the money that we spend on really nice equipment like we talked about last time, whether it's a digital mixer or, what, Tim, I don't know how big the cabinets we use on these are. These 15s, 12s, 10s, whatever. The racks that we put everything in. If you just roll it in the back of your band trailer or on a truck and take off, chances are, I think I heard you say, Mike, that sometimes Monday morning the equipment was in a lot worse shape than it was Friday at the last rehearsal.
Oh, yeah. It worked really well at the game, which was sometimes unusual. Because it's like there's always a fire somewhere. But then we'd get to Monday morning, we'd have pulled it off the trailer, rolled it to the stadium, because our stadium at the time was our practice field, and, then all of a sudden, right-hand speaker would be buzzing. And I know
Yeah.
good then we'd have to take it apart and find that little tiny connection and get it done, but some things to do in that training, I think it has a lot to do with what the kids are doing. Just try to teach them if you and I know it's like, let's give the teachers one more thing they have to do, right?
Right. But listen, I
You know
think most schools have a loading crew.
Yes, and a very proud loading crew. Those guys
Sure.
and gals really take great pride in what they do. So you're right, I should take back that one more thing
Well,
to do. You only have
not
to
so
tell
much that, but
you have to tell a load crew once. And
I
that is
think
great.
Tim, one of your oldest was on the loading crew, and he took it pretty serious.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He was up there at, I don't know, 5:36 every morning, moving that stuff out of the band hall, for rehearsal, and of course, and ran the crew. Uh,
And
and he
Mike, we have friends in Andrews. They're famous for their train.
Oh, yeah,
They they had like 10 carts in a row on the back of a golf cart. But anyway, my point
Well
is, I think that so much could be prevented if an SOP is created, or
let me
how do we do this? What's
these
the
guys
right way?
give these guys some ideas of things to do. One is they're real simple. It's just rules to follow. Don't tap microphones to see if they're on.
Yeah, let
You
me
know?
see. You want to see how that sounds? No.
Yeah, yeah. And I said it's the same as like pulling slides in a brass instrument without pushing the valve down. So
Right.
there's certain things in order you have to do. That's one. Another is making sure, and this is training the whole band, trying to train them to step over chords and never step onto a chord when it's on the turf field or the grass field, because that makes a difference. If you got 180 kids walking over cables and they're crunching them down every day, you're going to have some
Well,
shorts in those.
let's pause there. Tim, what do you do with all those cables in the front pit?
Well,
What's your
exactly what Mike said. You have to train those kids. Now, we like to use stronger cables,
Hmm.
okay? But when you've got that many kids, and it's funny, they could step over those cables so easily, and they never do.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a gravitational pull, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah,
It
it's
pulls
like,
their feet to it.
let me
must step
let me
on
step on the
cable?
exactly.
Yeah.
And we have, and I've got some groups that obviously use those cable protectors,
Mhm.
but you don't have time to run those out when you're getting ready for a performance for halftime.
Yeah.
You talk about those flat things that have a hatch on it, and you can run the cables down the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we use those all the time, and I've got bands that use those as well, but that's if you're gonna be stationary for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those things don't cost much, by the way, so it never hurts to have a few of those for now, I have seen this, Mike. You just put out, like, 2 of those, 1 on each side, and you tell your people, "This is where
That's where
you
you
walk
walk.
across is right here."
Yeah, that's kinda how we did it, and, I look back on it, I wish I'd have somehow ordered those, like, orange or hot pink or something, so it kinda attracted their eyes to it, but
Right.
yeah, that was for rehearsals because we were there for 3 hours, but,
Right. Ours
you're
are
right,
safety
Tim, in
yellow.
the game,
So
it's like, oh my gosh, but yeah, so we've got to get them where they don't walk on those at all possible, even if just one less kid walks on them, that's an improvement, okay? Another thing is, like, when they're moving it because almost every band I've seen, including mine, there's usually not enough load crew for rehearsals or especially at half times, for the load crew to move everything from the front ensemble off the field. So you just kind of every director randomly assigns people. So Susie, give your flute to Mary, and you're going to do this microphone stand. You know what I mean? You assign every tiny piece of equipment to somebody, and then if they're absent, their job is to hopefully tell someone else to do it. But we try to train them that we don't want anything to be jarred, so when there's a curb, you lift the wheels up over the curb. When you get to a dip or something, right, you just don't want anything to bump into anything else. And that's hard for kids. It's hard for anybody because, you give me a wagon full of my grandkids and I just go over curbs and, dump them out the back and throw them back in. And you know what I mean? So we just kind of do our thing, don't we? But I think that helps a lot in it. And only other thing I would say is when you put them on the trailer. I've seen some really, really smart band directors, much smarter than I because I never did this. But and I got it from drum corps, watching drum corps. I'd go out in the parking lot because I always have to bring up the Skyriders, Derek. I just have
Right.
to do that.
They're
So
awesome.
has a motorcycle, always talks about motorcycles. Okay. But I was going through parking lots because I'm on their board of directors and we bought a semi and we're going to build it out. And then I noticed in some of the drum corps, the really good ones, they had big giant foam rubber mats on the floor that they'd roll their sound carts in and their speaker systems, and they would latch them to the wall with foam between the wall and the sound cart and so forth, and foam on the floor of the trailer. And they'd have to do their second deck to accommodate for that level of foam.
Hmm.
We always called that level the dungeon. The bottom level is the dungeon because it's like working in a coal mine down there because it's pretty short.
Right.
But to me, I bet that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
There's also when you look at that, there's also things like shock mount cases and shock mount
Oh,
carts.
nice. So now we're getting cool. I've
Yeah,
never heard of that.
we
That's
also
cool.
you're getting expensive too, but if
I
you're going
raised funds for the Skyriders. We can do it. We can do that.
well, if you're going to
I'm gonna write
load
that down.
if you're going to load a system up and you're going to spend a lot of money on a sound system, you might as well spend a little bit more on the rack that it's in and run it with on something that has some type of shock absorption. When you talk about all these TV crews and things like that go do Monday Night Football or ESPN,
College game day.
yeah,
All that.
College
Yeah.
Game Day or the Fox Sport, any of that stuff. All of that equipment is in racks that has shock mount capability because
That's cool. I've never heard of that. That's awesome.
you're talking about way more expensive equipment than we're even talking about as far as sound goes. So that's one thing that we want to look into when we're talking about shock mounts. And you said something, Mike, that I want to make sure that we get in there. When you're talking about training kids or assigning kids parts or things to do, we need to make sure that we're actually training the adults that are helping as
Parents,
well.
right? Yeah.
The,
Boy,
the
that's a good point.
parents.
Good
We
point.
need to train them on how to move the stuff. And this is going to sound so simplistic, but you've got to teach people how to plug and unplug cables, whether
Mhm.
they're XLR cables, whether they're so many people just go up and they grab the cable
Yep.
and start yanking. Instead of, okay, is there a button to push? So this is an XLR, so I need to there's a release that I have to push, or a speak on cable that I have to pull the lever and then twist it to get it out. We do repairs for those all the time because people just go up and start grabbing. It's because somebody didn't tell the parent. That's how that comes out.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that we get that in there when we're doing some training.
You know, my dad used to call that more brains, less brawn.
Yeah. I like that.
But the other thing that this conversation kind of reminds me of, I'm going to date us a little bit. You remember the old Fram oil filter commercials where Fram was not disguising the fact that they might cost a little bit more, but the commercial said, you can pay me now
Or you
or
can,
you can pay me later. So when you're getting your carts, when you're designing things in your trailer, because you do have to build these trailers out by and large. And I realize for our smaller classifications, I've still got friends 1A, 2A buying trailers and outfitting them as they get more into the electronic side of this.
Mhm.
It helps. You know, a lot of people are just like, I got a trailer, let's load it up. And, you know, the road people from the music store, Tim and I used to laugh about this. We've been to conventions where they have contests where they call it schlepping. How much can you carry and how can you pack it in so it's organized and stays that way? It's just a little forethought. And I'm nerdy enough, Mike, and I can almost see this in your list of files somewhere in your file cabinet. I would draw out the trailer and make a map. This goes here, this goes here, this goes here. Put one in a laminated sheet, put it on the wall of the trailer. So when you bring it in, this is piece number one. It goes right here at this spot because we planned it out. And maybe that's overboard, and
No,
I
you
may
know-
not attend it.
You know me too well because I didn't do it, but my load crew did. Where they'd get all of our equipment and we would outline the trailer on the band hall tile floor with tape, with that
Right.
blue gaffing tape. And then they would figure out exactly where everything went before they tried to put it on the trailer. And then they would take pictures of it. Now, see, you're talking laminated. That's because we're old, Derek.
Well, you know what I mean. They
Yeah.
sell the sheets
They would
now.
put it on their
go
phones,
in a
on a
notebook.
turbo scan on their phones, and they would just send the files to each other. So everyone knew exactly where Marimba 2 went or whatever. They knew exactly. There was
Sure.
none
But-
of this, just pile it up, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're exactly right. It's a lot of money, and we got to take care of it. And it's harder to take care of electronics than it is band equipment.
Well, Tim and I will vouch for the fact that so many times we've heard this, you know, this is not disposable stuff. This is not designed
Yeah.
disposable equipment. And if you go back year after year asking for thousands and thousands of dollars because you broke last year's, the administration will say no at some point.
Yeah.
Usually earlier than later. But anyway,
Or your band parents will say no,
Your
very
boosters.
politely. But the boosters will say, "We just buy a bunch of stuff a year ago." Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we tore it up. Well, sucks to be you.
you're saying. Okay, so it's a part of
We got them
training.
trained. We got them trained.
And we get him on. You know, the other side of this I'm laughing about, it's probably worth considering where you're going to go because we left about this. We were at Shotwell doing an area, Shotwell in Abilene, Texas, for those of you who don't understand Shotwell just off the top of your head. But I was talking to the region coordinator about the difference between that stadium and in Odessa, Ratliff Stadium. Everybody's seen Ratliff if they've seen Friday Night Lights. But one of the things they haven't seen is how steep the ramp is that comes down from the parking lot area into the bowl. And if you're not prepared for that,
Yeah.
heavy equipment will take off on you in a heartbeat. But, you know, I guess all I'm saying is consider, plan ahead, take the time to think about that stuff. So we can move on from that anytime you want to. But
Good news there, though. They are supposed to be changing that ramp.
yeah. And I'm sure they will eventually.
It is treacherous.
But Mike, I don't know how long you've gone to, or you know, when you started going out to Ratliff. They have fixed the fact that once you got down that ramp, it's the track, right?
Mm-hmm.
The track and field track,
little ramp.
and then there was about a 2-foot drop off in a very short order that was even steeper than that. That you had to get all that equipment down. It was always fun. As an announcer in that booth, it's almost like watching Hunger Games or.
Well, Derek, I got to tell you a funny story about that little
Okay.
2-foot ramp. we were at a playoff game and we were playing Levelland of all places, but at Ratliff, and it was an ice game. So we got down the little ramps, but then when the band exited the field, it looked like one of those
Trying to get up those little
Yeah,
ramps.
because the first group of kids slid and fell into the people behind them and the people
Oh.
behind them, and all of a sudden we had like 160 kids laying on there, and the crowd's just like on. First they go, then they start laughing. It was
then
kinda funny.
somebody's
Nothing was really hurt. I mean, all the kids were wearing like 16 inches of
players.
padding around. So it was like those bouncy ball things you get into, So nothing was really damaged, but it was like I was on the sideline going, "Oh my God, my whole band's on the ground."
You did this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I went to West Texas State, and
I'm
outside
sorry.
the stadium at WT, it's like a really steep hill. And Amarillo gets a lot more actual precipitation that freezes than we do necessarily in the southern parts of the state. But it used to be entertainment. If it was a snow day, you just go watch cars try to get up that hill and slide back down,
Yeah.
and get up about halfway up, and then just start going the other direction. So, all right,
But
back on track,
I
Jared.
want to throw one more thing, not about the
Sure.
training necessarily,
Sure.
but have different levels in case something fails. Because we would use, and it wasn't my idea, these kids that were tech kids that I had sign up for band that they didn't play instruments. They were just there for band to escape PE and ride the bus with girls. That's what all those boys wanted to do. So they had those like pickle buckets, those 5-gallon ones, but it would have a cord, then a false bottom, then the exact same cord and a false bottom, and then the cord we used. So anytime something happened during halftime, you'd see those guys sling a cord all the way back to the track. And once it went back to the track, and you guys might hate this because it is kind of a waste of money, we never repaired them. If they failed us once, it was like a bad tire. We just weren't going to repair it. So we just threw it in the dumpster, and we would just go to the next cord. And that would only happen like maybe once every 3 or 4 games. So we'd be out like 5 chords in a year, but that was what's it called, NASA redundancy. I mean, you can't do that with your mixing board, of course, but have an extra microphone. It might not be as good a microphone, but it was in the same box, but it was labeled A and B. A was the one we used. B was the one we used in case A dropped and hit something and whatever, so just kind of throw that out there. And the other thing about training kids is what to do when it rains. That's a big issue, especially at area marching. Halftime, we can just, as a director, go, "Hey, we got lots of equipment. We're just going to play with brass players in the stands," and no one really cares at that point. But at area marching, you get one chance to march. They're not going to, if it starts raining on you, they're not going to tell you get a mulligan. And so I have a whole detailed list from over the years of what to have, down to dry cleaner bags to put the synths in. Then you cut slits where they can put their hands underneath, and Ziploc bags where you put them on the cords and you electrical tape them and you pull them around. You know what I mean? When it's time to hook them up, you unzip them, do the slider, all these things. And the reason I bring that up is not because you have to have that at that moment, but don't panic and try to buy that day. We would buy all that stuff and put it in a couple of tubs, and then we'd train the kids how to use it while it was dry.
Right.
If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But it was just, even like with the marimbas, there were like these little black backpacks zip tied to the side of them that had the tarps and the bungee cords and whatever was needed in case it was raining. So the kids knew, and we would practice that on the track as well as practicing. We would do like time trials, like NASCAR, like a pit crew. We would start on the end, and we would time them with a stopwatch to see if they could get all their equipment to the field and get set up and start the pre-show file in a certain amount of time. And then we would figure it out, and we'd go, "Okay, now this is how can you shave about 5 seconds?" And they'd go, "Yeah, we can do that and be efficient and not hurt anything. Yeah, we can do that." So they took great pride in that fact that they knew there was time trials for that.
Right.
Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there. So be ready for rain, because we don't get a lot of rain in our part of the world, but East Texas, they get a lot of rain. Houston, they just live underwater,
Yeah. And our friends in the Northwest and the Northeast.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of rain out there.
But listen, I'm going to say this, there are so many dangers with a sound system that people don't think about, because you're talking about electricity.
Yeah.
Typically in some form or fashion. And so phantom power is only 48 volts. Okay. And I don't know if y'all remember the story. I want to say it was a pastor in Waco that had a phantom powered microphone, which is a condenser microphone. That's the microphones that go underneath the marimbas and
Mhm.
things of that nature. Um, he was doing a baptism, and water somehow got with that microphone, and it electrocuted him.
Wow.
It is, you've got to be super careful, because there's times that you just need to say, hey, it's not worth it. Don't touch the
Yeah.
the system. It's wet. I'm standing in water, whatever it might be. Excuse me.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I want to kind of qualify what I said before. We would never roll stuff out in the rain. That was for if we were on the field and things were set up and started raining on us, then their job was to cover everything up and step away.
Well, and
You
you
know?
do, and
Yeah, so that's what it was more of a
listen. If you
preventative
get it
thing.
all
Yeah.
covered up,
I would never have a kid,
it's going to be
plugging in
fine.
cords in the rain in puddles. Yeah.
Um, it's just a matter of, like you said, you need to train those kids for that situation ahead of time, just like you do how to run the mixer,
Yeah. Or like a fire
or
drill.
anything else. But people don't, especially in West Texas, people don't train those kids for that. Not very often, anyway.
Yeah. That's
Here's
So,
the thing. Tell me if I'm wrong. If we're trained and if we have purpose and we know what to do, even if it's a rare circumstance because we've practiced it, it's pretty easy to do stuff really quickly, and it doesn't look like the Keystone Cops when everybody knows what they're doing. So I think that's a very valid point. But you brought up the electricity, and here I go down a Derek trail. FAQs. Tim, have you found, and Mike too? I mean, you took bands all over the place. Used to be everybody would string 50 feet of extension cord all the way back to the stadium bleacher wall to plug into an outlet. Are most stadiums these days designed where you've got electricity closer to you, or generators, or what do you guys see most common, and do you have opinions one way or the other?
Well, stadiums, most stadiums will have it, and then I think just over time that it's gotten closer and closer. But I don't see very many bands that do that. It's almost like it's only a layer A or layer B level of redundancy. They'll have an extension cord that'll plug into the main board or whatever into their main system. But most of them will use generators. Those like Honda has a really good one, a really quiet generator, and we used a big battery pack. I don't know what they call it. I think the word they call it by slang is juicers. When they're talking about those big battery packs, and ours was huge, man. I mean, if it like snowed really hard in Abilene and we had a snow day and we didn't have any power at my house, I could haul that thing home because I was only like a block and a half from the school, and I could power almost my entire house on that thing for a day. It was actually pretty amazing. But that's what I see.
Doesn't the install department build those, Tim?
we do. We'll custom build them to whatever specs. Of course, we do the generators as well. One of the things that I was going to say, based on the conversation or where we're going with this right now, is that I always do this. I recommend that everybody gets a portable GFCI. It's a ground fault circuit interrupter. Okay.
Okay.
And so
I like that red button in the kitchen.
it is like the red button
Okay.
in the kitchen.
You have to
That's
talk my
exactly what it
language,
is.
Tim.
Um, and it's just a safety feature.
Okay.
So when you're running this extension cord, doesn't matter where you're plugging it in, whether you're plugging it into a generator, into the stadium sound, or in, because even if you're going to a battery pack, there's a power inverter that's changing that battery power into the power that you need to run your system.
Okay.
So there's a power inverter built into the battery pack. So all you have to do, I say all you have to do, in my opinion, this is just a safety thing. You need to have one of those portable GFCIs that everything plugs into. And then if there is a problem, whether it's a short somewhere or something gets wet and something did start to happen as far as electrical, the theory is that that is going to trip and
Mhm.
shut off the power immediately.
So it won't
So
damage the actual equipment.
I'm not
Or the
really,
kid.
or the kid. Yeah.
It is
That's
really cool.
really all I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
You
I love
guys
these
caring
kind
about
of
kids.
podcasts that because a lot of times it's just me telling people things, and that gets kind of short sighted, obviously. But I love these ones where all of a sudden I'm writing things down because I'd never heard of that before either. And that makes perfect sense. Then you got to train the kids. Don't just re-trip it. If it
Right.
pops, don't just reach down and pop it
Yeah.
and say, okay,
There's a
there's a
problem.
reason it popped.
Right.
But yeah, that's cool. I've never even heard of that before, but that could save a lot of kids and a lot of equipment.
Well,
Okay.
we just do that. I get them at Lowe's or Home Depot or, something.
Okay.
So GFCI.
GFCI.
Right.
I'm sure it sounds for ground fault.
Circuit
No,
interrupter.
There you go. So another question relative to this, whether we have the power cart, whether we have a generator, distance from the actual system. Is there a theory there that you need to keep it at a certain distance? Or, they say quiet generators. I assume they're a lot quieter than the old ones that I'm used to. But is there a place you should put those relative to the rest of the equipment?
They're surprisingly quiet. I mean, you're right. When we first started using generators back in I don't know, it was probably like using a bass player instead of, because we didn't have a tuba in our 1A band back in 1988. I mean, the sound like a diesel engine down there. And I can't think of the last time, and I judged over 130 bands this year, and I guarantee you a bunch of them use generators, but I don't remember it. You know what I mean? Because it didn't draw my attention to anything. So, but I still kind of go the route of I think the battery packs are the better way to go. There's something with me because we used generators for a while, and I was really kind of paranoid. Of course, y'all know my personality. I'm a paranoid person, but hauling gasoline on a trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that generator's got to get to the game somehow. So we've got a generator full of gas that we're loading this bomb onto the back of this semi trailer. I'm thinking this can't be a smart thing, or at least a battery pack just sits there.
Yeah. And frankly, if you have an engine problem with the generator, you're done. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm talking about,
If the generator won't start. Yeah.
Or if the band director doesn't take care of it.
Right. Or, with a battery pack, worst case scenario, you can throw another battery in real quick. I mean, literally, to get through halftime, you could go grab a car battery and throw it in there real quick with your power inverter. Depends on what system you have, obviously.
And we went through this when I was out at Andrews helping out for a little bit when Darren Johns was teaching out there, and our battery pack went down. And so we called Intune because we were like, what do we do? We need this whole battery pack. And it might have been you, about Tim, but you go, no, just open the top. We opened the top. So, see those 4 batteries? You can buy those down at whatever. So we're like, oh, great. So we went down and bought them. But yeah, it's the level of ignorance of Mike Lunny. You know what I mean? And then it's band directors aren't trained to do this at school, so we're relying on being trained by other people, and more specifically music store reps, to train us to do it. Because I would have probably just bought a whole nother battery pack and had it delivered the next day. But then Tim was like, no, just open it up. There's 4 little marine batteries or something in there. So just you made us take a picture of it. That's what it was. We took a picture, then you sent a guy out.
Yeah.
And they came out and brought us the batteries.
Right. Because they're easy to fix.
Yeah. And they just handed them to us and we put them in there. So yeah, it was cool.
It's funny how one thing leads to another, but just another thing is when you're not marching, when you're not in marching season, you need to maintain those batteries. You cannot just throw that thing in a closet and then forget about it for 8 months and expect those batteries to still be good or do what they're supposed to do when you get it back out. So,
and then call your music rep and say, these batteries are bad.
Right.
This cart's bad.
I can save you some money.
Do you use a trickle charger, or what do you do?
We use automatic charger, and a lot of these things have them built in.
You just have to leave it plugged in.
When we build them, we use an automatic trickle charger, and
Okay.
if it starts to go down, it'll just kick on. It'll bring them back up to where they're supposed to be.
So it
Sometimes
reads the
they'll
voltage in there or the
yeah,
capacity.
and
Yeah.
sometimes they'll condition it. So when they do a conditioning thing, it'll actually drain the batteries all the way down and then charge them all the way back up.
Wow.
Now, it depends on what kind of battery it is, whether that needs to be done. Most batteries these days, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Do
But
you remember the
You
old
talk about-
school when you'd use your battery for like 7 minutes of halftime, and then you'd recharge it the next time, use it for 7 minutes of halftime. Pretty soon you got a 7-minute battery.
that's exactly right.
It creates memory.
So we're
Yeah.
kind of past that point now, it sounds like, where it's
We are.
just plug it in every time you bring it to the band hall, ladies and gentlemen. Just plug it in, and these modern technology, it'll take care of it for us.
If you have it built in, right?
Yeah.
It's worth checking out. That's a great point, Tim, because I can imagine me opening a closet and seeing battery terminals covered in white corrosive powder, and what's going on here? What?
Y'all, I had a pickup like that one time. You had to pour Coke on the battery to make it
Clean that turtle.
clean the battery top. I remember that in high school. I would just open a Coke and just pour it on the battery just to clean off all the scum.
So while we're on that, let's take that farther. Not just the power source, but I mean, listen, my brain doesn't always think logically like this, so I'm actually asking this. You guys aren't expecting people to tear their system completely down, take mics off every time they put it away during a season, but is that good practice once you're through using it on the marching field?
For
Do you
us,
want to go ahead and take all the mics off? And
all of our mics came off the equipment because ours were on nets. So that made it easier. So you just took the net off the equipment. But yeah, if they're shock mounted onto the frame, I don't know if I would take all the mics off. I don't know. Kids they can do weird things. You know what I mean? They can be moving stuff around. I'm almost going towards the idea that said, if possible, take time to remove everything.
I
the mic
wouldn't.
itself.
I wouldn't remove the mounting brackets
Yeah,
and stuff.
yes,
You
yes.
just want to move them, put the microphone back in a case. I mean, that would be fine.
are you talking about weekly or
No,
just once
I'm
the
not
season's
talking
over?
about weekly.
We did
there's-
it daily.
I wouldn't do it daily. Now
Yeah.
but that's me.
Yeah.
I'm lazy. That's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not lazy,
But
but
you know a lot more than me. Was I flirting with danger there that I could have more problems happen because we were unhooking and hooking every single day?
Well, that's my logic. The more you
Yeah,
pull
see,
and
I don't
tug
know.
on those cables,
Yeah,
the
we
more
just
likely you
unhooked
are that the
everything.
end's going to go. They're going to yank it wrong, or that's me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to tell
never
you, when
thought
I-
about that.
when
Just
I
my
in-
OCD self.
when I install, let's say I'm installing a system, if you will, and I'm installing microphones on a marimba, and I've got them on a hard mount going to the shock mount, like the AT shock mount, okay? I'm still taking those cables that are there, and they are getting zip tied or attached somehow. So there's no cables that move around. So they're certainly not moving the cables every week. I mean, I'm doing it to where it's going to stay there at least for the entire season. And I'm even zip tying the cable to the frame up at the top because I don't want that cable I don't want that cable to move. I don't want it to get pulled away from the microphone
Okay.
at all. Because
You don't want the wheels running over it. So
and
you
I
put
don't
it
want
up
the
high.
wheels rolling over it. Yeah. So when these things get unhooked, and there's different ways to run the cables. You can go from the marimba or whatever it is over to, you can take that cable and run it into a snake. You can take that cable, and some people line them up. This marimba then plugs into the marimba that's next to it. They've got an extra cable on that marimba. And so all of the cables just plug in next to each other. So there's actually nothing on the ground except for the last group. And so the last instrument that is right in front of the sound system, it might have 6 mic lines that come off of that one instrument
Okay.
that go down and plug in. to me, that is still, if you're going to do that, you've got more at risk, because you've got one marimba that's way down, and then you've just linked a bunch of cables together for that one marimba that's way away, and every connection is a problem point.
It's a possible failure. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
every connection is a possible failure. So the fewer connections that you can have, that's why I run them from whatever it is, that marimba, that frame, I'll run it over and plug it into the snake, or whatever it is that we're going to plug it into. And I do not, we talked about this last time, I do not like kids plugging directly into and out of the mixer. Even if it's just a 4-foot snake or a 10-foot snake, something, because it's the same thing. I don't want kids plugging and unplugging that, or adults or anybody.
Into the most expensive piece you got.
Exactly.
Into the brain.
So I'm just trying to protect that piece of gear. It's a whole lot easier to fix a snake or fix a cable than it is to fix something that goes wrong with the mixer.
But and Tim, I'm jumping on board with that. I think that's the right way to go. They make these Velcro straps. Kid can unplug from the snake, wind up the cable, and strap it to the cart of the instrument that it came from.
Right.
So it's up in the air, it's suspended, and it's safe as they transport it.
Right.
Just rip the Velcro, string it right back out. I like that better than daisy chaining, everybody to everybody.
Yeah, and since you brought that up too, a simple thing, but I had to be taught this. Teach them how to properly wind those cables.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You turn your hand and you do like that, so you're not twisting the inside the cable. So if you're not sure what we're talking about, just look it up on YouTube. But it'll save you a lot of time and effort. But
And cables.
yeah, when we were down at State Marching, I traveled with Dane Richardson from Holiday, and it seemed like most of the repairs that were going on in the parking lot with all the semi-trailers was electronics. And I got to tell you a funny story about it. Dane was sitting there. He had one mellophone player that we couldn't get their horn fixed. Later on, we found out there was a battery in it, So
Oh my gosh.
But we were sitting there, and Dane walked up, and it was me, and then there was the gentleman who's the owner of Sam Gibbs Music, and then there was a Tarpley guy, then 2 guys from East Texas. All these music reps were there, and we were all standing in the parking lot looking at each other, talking. And Dane walked up, and he goes, "Is this like Anchorman? Are y'all going to fight right now?" But every store is represented in parking lot A at the Alamo Dome.
That's funny.
But most of the repairs, and Tim would probably attest to this, most of the repairs were not clarinets and flutes. It was, hey, our marimba mic is not working, or this isn't, because they were testing their electronics in the parking lot. So it's a different world out there, isn't it? It's a different world. It's kind of cool. I love it, but it's different.
This is a completely non-tech story.
Okay.
But you talked about having a battery in it, which I don't know how you do that, but I guess out of the tuner, maybe in the case it bounced around and got in there.
Yeah, I think they had, they used their tuners because they can't use their phones in class anymore. And it bounced around, and the third valve was like, it was stuffy. And we tried everything. I mean, I took that horn completely apart, and I wasn't there representing as a road rep or anything. I'm not of that level. I'm just a guy that does the podcast and whatever. But I was trying to use my band director skills, and I was so frustrated. And then finally one of the other reps grabbed it, and he just went and got another mellophone
So
and handed it to him.
And that's the quickest fix, I will tell you.
Yeah.
But in my history, I was a shop foreman for a while for Caldwell Music. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. And we had a sousaphone that was very stuffy, couldn't figure it out. We had a young lady that was a high school student helping us with flushes. And she, Tim probably remembers this, she finally took the Sousa body, took a garden hose, a thin garden hose that we had, held it on the tubing, and just let the pressure build up and shot 3 mice out of it.
That's how we did it at Wiley. Except one
It was
time
our favorite.
we found a kitten. It was like, the kid goes, "I wonder where that cat went." It was a tuba, and I said, "Well, where do you store this horn at home?" He said, "Well, I leaned it on the wall up against my dresser." So that little kitten had walked across the dresser.
That's terrible. See, I feel worse about the kitten than the mice.
It's like, boom. We go, "Oh my God, that's a kitten." And you go, "I wonder where that kitten went." Lord help us.
I thought I was going to tell you.
Never-ending process. But yeah,
Right.
we would do that. Of course, those sousaphones, for those band directors, another hack that's not electronic, but I think Intune at the time Caldwell sold them to me. But those little screens that you put in your sousaphone necks,
Yes.
oh man, they're worth they're worth their weight in gold. Because we would always be blowing popcorn and tennis balls and things not to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Whatever they would throw up there to get into those sousaphone bells, they would try. They
That's
would
funny.
try. Yeah.
All right. So
All right, back to electronics. I'm sorry.
steering back into Techland and
Yeah.
FAQs.
Yeah.
You never did tell me where you think the power supply should be relative to the system. Does it matter?
Well, you're kind of limited by your field of what you're doing. Some stadiums don't have tracks anymore, so you do what you got to do.
Right, but I mean,
I like to
Tim,
have
is it
far
going
away
to
as
interfere the signal at all?
No, listen, I'm not worried about that so much. My stipulation when I say this to people is that you need to use a 12 gauge cable. Okay.
Okay.
If you're going to go a super long distance, I like a 10 gauge cable, but those are not common. They are super expensive, and 12 gauge is fine. But the farther you run cable, the less power you get. It's the same way with speaker cables or anything else.
It's diminishing. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the further you go, the less power you get at the end of the line. And so we just say, just do 12 gauge. That here again, the difference in cost between 12 and 14 gauge is small when you're talking about what we're talking about. So just suck it up and buy the 12 gauge.
Yeah.
But you're not worried necessarily about ground noise or any kind of buzzing coming from your power source.
I'm going to say this. I'm not worried about it except in Andrews, America.
It's funny how we all call it Andrews, America.
Well, there is a thing. I dealt with this for years, and I had to have special cables made for them because turns out there's something underneath their field.
Mm-hmm.
And
Darren and I decided it was an old UFO.
Well,
it's Area 51.
Whatever
in the 1500s.
Well, whatever it was, I had to order him special cables that were shielded in a different way, and that solved the problem. Yeah. But it took us, because we could take those same cables anywhere else, and it was not a problem.
Yeah.
But once we put it on the football field, it was an issue. So it took us a little while to figure that one out. But that's the only place that I can remember that cables on the ground actually had noise coming from the ground.
Yeah. And that stadium will mess up your cell phone signal too. It was the most bizarre thing. There's something around there. I don't know what it is.
Well, they do have a nuclear waste plant, Glenn.
Well, I mean, it's just details.
Their glow in the dark game is a lot more interesting than I live there. I can say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't think there's necessarily, by and large, the problem from the power supply would be the exception. It's not like you have to plan for it as long as you get quality, correct gauge cable.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that I want to make sure that it's grounded. If you're going to plug into a stadium power, you want to make sure it's grounded. I mean, that's one way that the GFCI thing works, is that, and don't use an extension cord where somebody has cut the ground off of it. The ground is that third prong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The round one.
That breaks off, or somebody cuts it off because it's a super old plug, you're just asking for trouble. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I think the majority of receivers or receptacles these days accommodate the ground plug. Back in the day, it used to just be the two blades, and so they broke it off so they could still use the plug without having to go buy one. But I think that's probably a technology is advanced far enough.
And you're right, that does happen in some of the older stadiums because those plugs were put in for like weed eaters, and you know what I mean? It wasn't put in there for running electronics. And I've seen them where they'll have at a stadium, they'll have the two blade one, then they'll buy that little stupid gray thing from Lowe's.
Yeah.
That's and it really, all it does is short circuit, for lack of a better term, your safety feature. So
Right.
but they do it that way, and bands plug into it. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know.
So if you get a big hum in your system, so there's a way to handle that as well. But you kind of need to know these things ahead of time.
Yeah.
But if you get a big hum in your system, and it's a 60 cycle hum coming from your power, that's another issue. That's another reason though for you to carry your own power source, carry your batteries with you, or carry your generator with you. Do not rely on a stadium that you don't know what you're getting when you get there.
Yes. Plus, if you do that, Tim, it's so handy when you're at a contest because you can run all your electronics in the parking lot.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
can test everything instead of like, okay, here we go. This is for real. Oh crap! Now we have 4 mics that are down. Now, if we find that in the parking lot, we've got a little bit of a chance to do it. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, try to stay away from the stadium power.
Okay. So as the guy that I'm trying to figure out which track we're fixing to go to next, is there anything else? Because I kind of want to move indoors as far as technology. We've talked a lot about outdoors, but sound systems in the band halls and pieces of tech that we can use in the, moving towards the concert area, or, maybe rehearsals as we work through pieces in the band hall.
Or
Is
even
there anything else? Is there anything else you need to address for the field that you think we haven't? We've done training, we've done types of equipment, we've done power supplies, we've talked about some possible failure points. Is there anything else you could say as we're considering technology that we ought to throw in real quick?
I don't have anything, and I've learned about 3 or 4 new things today, so
Cool.
I'm excited.
Tim?
I there probably is, but I can't think of it right now. So
Well, this is what I'm going to say, because you guys have all that technical knowledge, but I'm telling you, so many problems could be avoided. You really need to talk to people, ask questions, and take time to do planning before you just go out and start buying stuff. So I think that's actually going to save you more money than anything. What are we actually going to do with it? How much above and beyond what we need right now can we afford? Because we'll grow into it. It's amazing how fast you grow into needing more.
Mm-hmm.
But take time to plan, ask questions, talk to people that do it well, and don't be afraid to talk to your local store that has some people there that know what they're talking about.